In the previous episode, Klaus finally rescued his brother Elijah, and they also discovered why Esther wanted to kill Klaus's daughter, Hope. Elijah finally regained consciousness. Klaus walked in, guilt-ridden, and began to recount the story of how he had killed his biological father. He handed Elijah Ansel's notebook, inside of which were drawings Ansel had made of a young Klaus. If there was anyone in the world who could truly understand Klaus's actions, it was Elijah.
You killed him for hope.
Under his brother's comforting words, Klaus found a sense of inner peace. Haley and Marcel approached the brothers, announcing that they had a gift for them. Puzzled, the brothers followed them down the hall, where they saw a bound Finn and an indignant Cole. Klaus broke into a satisfied smile. Davina finds Marcel, saddened by Cole's deception and the loss of the white oak stake. Marcel confessed that he had kidnapped Cole and returned the white oak stake to Klaus, urging Davina and Josh to stay together while he went to meet with Klaus. Reunited friends began to open up to each other. Josh said that he was doing well and even shared a picture of Aiden with Davina. Davina was happy for her friend and mentioned that she wanted to meet his significant other. Following her request, Josh brought Aiden to meet Davina.
You must be Aiden. Super cool, super handsome.
Werewolf, traitor.
An unexpected joke fell flat, making the atmosphere awkward, and Aiden hurriedly tried to change the subject. Davina excused herself, saying she needed to order some takeout, and turned to leave. With no one else around, Aiden and Josh appeared both happy and bashful, but Aiden seemed worried, fearing that sooner or later, someone would suspect him of framing Finn. Josh reassured him sincerely, telling him that he only needed to tell everyone the truth. The pack would believe and understand him. Touched by his sweet words, Aiden leaned in to kiss his boyfriend's lips. The two shared a passionate kiss. Only then do they remember Davina, but she has already sneaked away. Finn and Cole were both shackled in chains, unable to use their magic, and even the simple act of eating a piece of cake required them to watch for others' approval. Klaus tried to persuade his brothers to join his side with kind words. Elijah, however, had become irritable and was like a completely different person. Klaus had to intercede a lot, but Finn brought up Rebekah, stating that from the very first day of her resurrection, their mother had been secretly searching for Rebekah's whereabouts. He claimed it was only a matter of time before their mother found Rebekah. At that moment, Rebekah also sensed something was wrong. The rows of ravens in the distance were messengers of their mother, and she and Hope were no longer safe. Upon hearing Finn say that their mother had already found Rebekah, Elijah instantly bared his fangs. Klaus had no choice but to temporarily halt the negotiations. He pulled Elijah into the hallway, reminding him that killing Finn and Cole would be pointless. They would only find new bodies and come back to life.
As the earth shifted on its axis, you needing restraint from me.
Elijah soon received a call from Rebekah. She had managed to escape Esther's messengers and was currently on the run with Hope in her arms. Klaus advised his sister to head west. Elijah hung up the phone and urged Klaus to go find Hope, but Klaus was worried that in his brother's current state, peaceful negotiations would be impossible, so he decided to stay and convince Finn and Cole himself, while sending Elijah to protect his daughter.
Elijah, do whatever it takes to keep her safe. I give you my word.
The werewolves began conspiring to rebel against Esther's rule. Haley hoped that Aiden could gather all the werewolves for a meeting. However, Aiden explained that as long as the witches controlled the moonlight rings, the werewolves would continue to follow them. But, unable to defy his leader's orders, he reluctantly agreed to the meeting. Jackson, on the other hand, remained consumed by his depressive state. Despite having studied numerous ancient texts and read through Ansel's notes, he still couldn't find a way to spare his people from the agony of transforming. Now, having lost both Ansel and Oliver, Jackson numbed himself with alcohol. Haley, seeing no other option, began sifting through those ancient books as well. At Klaus's invitation, Marcel joyfully joined him in tormenting his brothers. Marcel warned Cole to stop messing with Davina, but Cole wasn't intimidated by his threats. Klaus needed him to fight against Esther. Unfazed by Cole's stubbornness, Marcel didn't hesitate. He grabbed a knife and plunged it into Cole's hand. Klaus, too, eagerly laid out various instruments of torture for Finn. Ever since Freya's death, Finn had become their mother's most devoted child. His loyalty to Esther had lasted 1,000 years, and he wouldn't be swayed by Klaus now. Haley unexpectedly made a new discovery in Ansel's notes. According to the notes and the legends passed down among the werewolf clans, if the leaders of two clans were to marry, they would be able to share each other's strengths. In other words, if Haley married Jackson, The werewolves could control their transformations just as she could. Haley initially thought that a simple ceremony would suffice, but Jackson insisted that it had to be a genuine marriage. Noble and kind-hearted, Jackson had known about this legend for a long time, but he was unwilling to pressure Haley into marriage. This left Haley in a dilemma. On one hand, there was her complicated and awkward love for Elijah, and on the other, the revival and unity of her entire clan. She turned to Camille for help, hoping to find some reliable information among the myriad of dark magic artifacts. Camille advised Haley to think it through carefully, as she alone would have to bear the consequences of her decision. But Haley noticed something odd about Camille. A row of puncture wounds had mysteriously appeared on Camille's back, but she had no recollection of how they got there. The werewolf gathering took place as planned, and Haley publicly discussed the union between the clans. She stood before all the werewolves and slowly extended her hand. Her palm began to transform, sprouting wolf-like claws and fur, and her eyes turned golden. As the last remaining member of the Labonaire wolf clan, Haley naturally became the clan leader. Standing before all her people, she announced the decision to marry, urging them to abandon the witches' rings, unite, and create the strongest pack in history. Aiden was the first to step forward in response. He walked up to Haley and publicly discarded his moonlight ring. The pack dispersed. Haley and Jackson sat on the ground together. Jackson vowed that he would be a good husband, and even if it was just a formality, he would still give Haley a proper proposal ceremony. He knelt on one knee in front of Haley and took her hand.
Haley Marshall, will you marry me?
Elijah sat in the restaurant, waiting for his sister and niece, when the gaze of a strange man made him uneasy. A waitress accidentally spilled tea on his sleeve, and fury surged through him. Esther's brainwashing had taken effect, and in his mind, the image of a closed red door appeared once more, hiding the darker side of his bloodlust and violence. Rebekah arrived late with Hope in tow. The long-separated siblings embraced warmly. Elijah lovingly cradled Hope in his arms, and he began to find the idea of becoming human somewhat appealing. Rebekah mentioned that she, too, wished to have a child of her own, but then she noticed the bloodstain on her brother's sleeve, making an excuse that the baby needed a diaper change. She took Hope from Elijah and headed towards the restaurant's kitchen. She gently pushed open the ajar door and was greeted by the sight of a room filled with scattered corpses. Every waiter and patron in the restaurant had fallen victim to Elijah's hands. She quickly covered Hope's eyes and turned away, gathering her emotions before returning to Elijah with Hope in her arms, placing the baby back in the cradle. As Elijah's attention was focused on Hope, Rebekah swiftly and cleanly snapped her brother's neck. Davina returned alone to the secret base she shared with Cole. Determined to save Cole, Davina made herself the bait. She used dark magic to brew a large bowl of a thick, black potion, and without hesitation, drank it down. Davina then made her way to the Originals mansion and, without warning, attacked Klaus, sending him flying with a single blow. Not one to be outdone, Klaus retaliated by casually throwing her out as well. Davina continued to provoke Klaus with her words. Klaus finally reached his breaking point and sank his teeth into Davina's throat, but the blood that flowed from Davina's veins was black, and Klaus collapsed, poisoned and helpless. It turned out that Davina had transformed her own blood into a lethal toxin. Cole asked Davina what she planned to do next. She replied that she intended to drain Klaus's blood and toss him into the river. Marcel pointed out that he had already convinced Cole, and they were all going to join forces against Esther. Davina refused their offer, but Camille's arrival changed her mind. Upon hearing the news of Ansel's death, Esther was overwhelmed with grief. She sought out Camille without hesitation, but Camille had no recollection of this encounter. While changing clothes, Camille discovered a series of puncture wounds on her back, and Cole recognized it as a spell their mother used to prepare a body for possession. When Camille learned that she was to become the next vessel for Esther, she was furious. She stormed up to Finn and slapped him hard across the face. She demanded to know why Finn had chosen her.
Because you're perfect. Healthy. Beautiful. Smart.
But Finn says that Camille wasn't her mother's vessel for herself. She was her vessel for Rebekah. They knew they couldn't defeat Esther without Klaus. Despite Davina's strong reluctance, she agreed to revive Klaus for Camille's safety. Davina was relieved that Cole hadn't betrayed her. Klaus also told Cole that he had mourned deeply for him after hearing of his death. As they spoke, Klaus received a call from Rebekah. Rebekah said that the Elijah she knew would never have killed a dozen humans just because the food was bad. Klaus arranged a place for them to meet. After hanging up, he walked over to Finn and signaled Marcel to bring in the coffin. He no longer had the time or patience to persuade Finn, so he locked him in the coffin and sealed the lid. Haley arrived late, saying she had something to discuss with him. Klaus told her to save it for the journey ahead. This was perhaps one of the rare tender moments for the Michelson family. Elijah cradled Hope in his arms. Rebekah was busy gathering firewood for the bonfire. In the distance, Klaus and Haley were driving towards them. Haley, overcome with emotion, rushed to her daughter. She carefully took Hope from Elijah's arms, her longing for her daughter over the past few months finally finding some relief. Haley glanced back at Klaus, then walked over to him, handing Hope to her father. Klaus held his daughter lovingly. The family of three was finally reunited. Rebekah and Elijah watched them quietly from the side. Klaus gently kissed his daughter's forehead. Under the bright sunlight, the family gathered to prepare for the bonfire festival. Rebekah suggested that everyone should write down a wish and throw it into the fire. Klaus was deeply resistant to such sentimental gestures, but Haley insisted that this was their daughter's first festival and they needed to respect tradition. Klaus couldn't hide the smile on his face as he held his daughter, reluctant to let anyone else hold her, not even her mother. Haley urged him to write down a wish.
You would tell Elijah you're marrying your werewolf suitor, at which point I will pour him a scotch and congratulate him on the bullet he dodged.
Seeing the mischievous look on his face, Haley, dissatisfied, took their daughter and walked away. In the bright sunlight, Klaus lit the bonfire. Rebekah excitedly came out with a camera. Though every cell in Klaus's body resisted, he still couldn't refuse everyone's request and took their first family photo. As they looked at the beautiful, sweet moment captured in the photo, Klaus spoiled the mood by insisting that the photo had to be burned, to avoid the risk of it falling into the wrong hands and revealing Hope's whereabouts. Haley reluctantly threw the photo into the fire. And with that, the Michelson siblings' brief holiday came to an end. Rebekah refused to endure this kind of life any longer. She declared that she would willingly cooperate with their mother to complete the spell, and urged her brothers to kill her while Esther was casting the spell. As night fell, Haley sought out Elijah. With a tinge of guilt, she told him about her impending marriage to Jackson. She explained that while she was doing this for the sake of her family's survival, she couldn't marry one man while still loving Elijah. Elijah understood, acknowledging that Haley had to unite her people. He would also bring the vampires together, and Davina would eventually become the leader of the witches. Only by doing so could they restore peace to the city, allowing Hope to stop wandering and return to her parents. But at the same time, this also meant that their relationship had officially come to an end.
Stay away, just let you be.
After 1,000 years of separation, the reunion of husband and wife was far from warm and comforting. Michael angrily accused his wife of disregarding his fate while not forgetting to resurrect her old lover. He vowed to kill Ansel once again. Esther informed him that Ansel had already died by Klaus's hand. At the mention of Klaus, Michael's anger surged, and he couldn't resist attacking Esther, but she vanished before his eyes. Esther reappeared behind Michael, after chanting a spell, and suggested that although there was little affection between them, they could still negotiate a deal. Cole and Davina had not given up their plot against Klaus. Cole explained that to make the dagger effective in sealing Klaus, they would need a larger diamond. In 1914 New Orleans, Cole, along with two witches, snuck into a mansion in the dead of night and successfully stole the jewels of a noble widow. But as Cole was leaving the mansion with the diamond, he was caught red-handed by Marcel and Klaus. Klaus demanded that he hand over the diamond, and Cole, with no other choice, reluctantly gave it to his brother. As punishment for Cole, they ordered the witches to seal the house. Cole's female companions were trapped inside and never set foot outside the door again. Davina suggested that while Klaus was away on vacation, they could sneak back and retrieve the diamond. With the plan set, they began searching the entire house, rummaging through boxes and cabinets. Davina unexpectedly found an old photograph. It was a picture of the Michelson siblings taken during Christmas of 1914. At that time, Cole was also secretly searching Klaus's room, trying to steal back the diamond, but was caught by Rebekah. Cole told her that with the diamond, he could create a dagger capable of sealing Klaus, and he begged Rebekah to keep his secret. Rebekah agreed, but at the following party, Cole realized that his brother already knew what he had been up to. After the photographer captured that photograph, Klaus used the dagger to seal Cole first. Cole doesn't tell Davina the rest of the story, but already has a vengeful prank in mind. Impatient, Camille decided to start with Finn. She persuaded Marcel to open the coffin and release Finn, thoughtfully offering a piece of cake to the nearly suffocated Finn. But Finn coldly declared that he would no longer be swayed by her beauty and kindness. Camille accused him of having no moral compass. Finn responded that while everyone in the family sought to redeem Klaus, he didn't believe in redemption, only in justice and evil. He insisted that his actions were about protecting ordinary people like Camille, as he intended to kill all vampires and any humans who sided with them. Camille, frustrated, gave up on the conversation and had Marcel lock Finn back in the coffin. They then finalized their plan to lure and kill Esther. Cole demanded the diamond as his reward. Having gotten what he wanted, Cole quickly followed Marcel's plan and prepared a new vessel for Rebekah, ensuring that Camille would no longer be at risk of possession, but Cole mentioned that he needed to retrieve his mother's hourglass to connect both spells. To gain Esther's trust, he would have to hand over the white oak stake. Marcel adamantly refused this idea, but Klaus emerged and agreed.
Do I have your word that for once you will honor that?
You have my word, Nick. Swear on the fate of us all.
Klaus turned and went to fetch the stake. Cole handed the white oak stake to his mother, claiming he had completely earned Davina's trust. Casually, he drew circles on his mother's hourglass. Rebekah appeared before Esther as planned, bringing up her mother's plans to remake them. Meanwhile, Davina set up the ritual circle and prepared the hourglass. The two hourglasses would be linked, allowing Davina to cast a spell that would prevent Esther's soul from escaping her body. As her mother prepared tea, Rebekah asked for red wine instead. Esther complied, stating that Rebekah was the only one of her children who could truly be carefree, and becoming human would bring her happiness. Esther handed the wine to her daughter. Cole interrupted at this moment. Drawing his mother's attention, Rebekah pretended to be convinced.
Well then, to the end of an era. I'm in.
Esther turned the hourglass, then clinked glasses with her daughter before slowly sipping the wine. Cole secretly muttered an incantation, and the two hourglasses connected. Rebekah anxiously watched as the sand in the hourglass rapidly sank. Just then, Esther produced the white oak stake, announcing that she would destroy her daughter's vampire body. Cole was taken aback by this development. Rebekah demanded that the spell be stopped, but her mother insisted that the spell couldn't be undone. It was set in motion the moment she turned the hourglass. Davina and the others watched the hourglass intently, waiting for the final moment. Klaus appeared before his mother, offering himself in exchange for Rebekah, but she refused. Esther expressed her disappointment in his stubbornness. She revealed that she had already struck a deal with Michael and would hand over the white oak stake to him. She also had a new body prepared for herself. As the hourglass neared its end, Cole loudly reminded his brother that the time had come. Klaus swiftly drove a knife into his mother's throat, and Esther slowly collapsed. As the last grains of sand fell, Davina began chanting loudly, and Camille and Rebekah both started trembling. With a loud bang, the hourglass shattered, and they all collapsed to the ground. They looked at each other in bewilderment, realizing that all they could do now was wait. Klaus gently carried the unconscious Rebekah back and laid her down on the couch. Marcel noticed the broken shackles. Finn had escaped with someone's help, leaving behind an empty coffin. Camille was still asleep, and Marcel pointed out that she needed to leave the French Quarter because Finn would pose a threat to her safety. Suddenly, Camille awoke with a start, and Klaus cautiously called out her name. This meant the plan had worked. They had blocked Esther's escape route. However, Rebekah still hadn't woken up. Her soul had entered a new body. Klaus turned to leave, and Marcel asked if he could confirm whether Esther was truly dead. Klaus said that he and Rebekah had prepared a backup plan. He then arrived at a crypt filled with human bones, where Esther lay quietly. Esther slowly woke up, a blood bag placed in front of her. Klaus informed his mother that while she was off guard, Rebekah had mixed her own blood into the wine she drank. Now, she was undergoing the transition into a vampire. Klaus generously offered his mother a choice: either die and return to hell or become the very vampire she despised. Cole then produced the diamond, saying that the creation of the dagger could now proceed. He told Davina that he had played a prank. As revenge for Rebekah's past betrayal, he had switched the body meant for Rebekah with that of one of his witch friends. It was the same witch that Klaus had trapped in the mansion back in 1914. Unaware of all this, Klaus placed his sister's body into a coffin. Cole then pulled out the white oak stake and, keeping his promise, handed it back to Klaus. The thrilling saga continues. Follow me for more.